Okay, good morning. Well, midday already, and we continue with our chapter 3 today. Haxolin, factor proportion theory of comparative advantage. Factor proportion theory. So I'm gonna give you so we have Haksha and Nolin, 2 person, and me. Factor endowment is as a source of comparative advantage. And then we're going to ask question whether international trade is responsible for the loss of American jobs. Is factor endowment theory a good predictor of trade patterns? There's going to be Leontief paradox, economies of scale, and all after this, we gonna deal with the alternative thinking away from the comparative advantage based on Smith, Ricardo, and Haxolin. Yes, we're talking about comparative advantage, but the basis now alternative to what has been explained by Haxolin, which is comparative advantage comes from the difference in factor endowment between countries. Now, the alternative view that comparative advantage can come from other sources other than factor endowment. So we're still talking about comparative advantage. We're not talking about the alternative to comparative advantage. We are talking about comparative advantage. We are only talking about the alternative to Haxolin. Haxolin says comparative advantage comes from factor endowment. I'm repeating, okay? So now we're going to study from number 4. After the testing by Leontief, we're going to study from number 4 the alternative to the explanation by Haxolin, which is again repeating comparative advantage comes from factor endowment. We take the alternative view to that because alternatively comparative advantage can come from other factors, can come from other situation other than factor endowment. That's what our number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8. From 4 to 8, that's the alternative to factor endowment. Still talking about comparative advantage. And after that, the other discussions. So again, it's too small. The concept. Oh, okay. Maybe I should go through this. Previously, we learned both the models 2 by 2 by 1 and also 2 by 2 by 2. The 2 by 2 by 2 increasing cost is based on 2 factors K and L. A product is produced by a combination of K and L depending on its intensity. K intensity products use more K. L intensity products uses more L. Haxolin explains the increase in the cost, increasing cost model into a factor endowment or factor proportion theorem assumption. In addition to the 6 by the classical trade theory, Smith and Ricardo, which is perfect competition, fixed endowment of resources, firm's technology within a country do not vary. No transportation costs. Factors are mobile across industries within the country, not across countries. World of two countries, two products. Hexaolin assumes taste and technology do not differ between countries. This is by Hexaolin. Taste and technology are the same. So in economics, we call it ceteris paribus. You want to show a model, you keep other conditions as no change or the same, ceteris paribus, and you only change other one. The ceteris paribus, taste and technology are the same in all countries. In this case, two countries only. Countries differ in factor endowment only, while products differ in factor intensity. This is the assumption of Hexaolin. The two countries differ only with regard to factor endowment. What is given to them? The K and L. That's the only difference. One country has more K, another country has more L. And we make assumption to that. For example, X is capital intensive, Y is labor intensive. Why do I say for example? We can make the opposite assumption. X is labor intensive, Y, the product, is capital intensive. Doesn't matter which way our assumption is. The story will follow. So, Hexaolin theorem, this is the concept, okay, will lead to factor endowment theorem, or Hexaolin theorem is actually factor endowment theorem, not lead to factor endowment theorem. It is based on the different shape of the production possibilities frontier between countries has become the source of comparative advantage. One country, the shape of the production possibilities frontier, more toward X, the other country, more toward Y. That difference in the shape becomes the basis for international trade based on comparative advantage. So next after that, this is the whole concept for this chapter, right? We relax the HO assumption of taste and technology vary across country. We relax that. Now, next after this, we're gonna look at taste and then technology. We assume other things the same, ceteris paribus. When we use taste as the difference between two countries, there's going to be comparative advantage as well. But this comparative advantage because of taste, not because of factor endowment. Now we're leaving. What are you leaving? Finish with the factor endowment theory. Finish with Hexaolin. Finish Hexaolin, because Hexaolin is only factor endowment. All other things are the same, ceteris paribus. Only factor endowment. So you must remember, this is still concept, okay? Hexaolin is only factor endowment theorem. When you leave that, go to another thing. Now taste, no more Hexaolin. So what happens when there's a taste? Country A prefers to consume more X than Y, while endowment and technology are fixed, the same, both countries. Or no change in both countries. So both countries have the same shape of production possibility frontier. Free trade tastes. What if free trade tastes differ? Free trade equilibrium, not free. Pre-trade equilibrium point favors the preferred products, which is steep slope for price of X over price of Y, and country A competitive advantage in Y because of the steep slope increase or high opportunity cost for the production of X. So when we see this Px over Py, this ratio of price before trade, ratio of price of X to price of Y, we're talking about opportunity cost production of X. When it's very steep slope, that country will specialize on the other product, which is Y, not X. Because when taste is the difference, suppose that country prefer, in my informal language, crazy about using product X, so there's going to be steep slope. Price of X over price of Y is large in that country, which is country A. So as a result, high opportunity cost for the production of X in country A. So country A will specialize in production of Y. On the opposite is true. The story is opposite for country B. So next, we're going to study technology. So this case, we assume factor endowment the same, taste the same, only technology is the difference between two countries. Let me go back. When we say taste, we assume other things. Factor endowment are the same between two countries. Technology the same between countries. Only difference between two countries, ceteris paribus, only taste. So this the result. Also will produce comparative advantage as well between two countries, but not because of factor endowment. So this is not Axial-Lin. Axial-Lin only factor endowment. Technology. Now we assume technology is the only difference. Other things are equal between two countries, ceteris paribus. Taste the same between two countries. The two countries like to use X. Both countries. Consumers in the countries like to use X. Same. Technology of production of X in both countries are the same, as well as technology production of Y, the same in both countries. The only difference is this. Sorry, this is we're talking about technology. So ceteris paribus, taste and endowment the same. Okay. Now technology. Ceteris paribus, taste the same, endowment the same between two countries. Taste the same, both countries like to consume X. Endowment the same. Now, number two, technology. Endowment the same, both countries has more capital, and we assume X is capital intensive. We have to make that assumption. So country A has higher technology. Now the only difference, technology. That's what we mean by ceteris paribus. Country A has higher technology in producing Y, while endowment and taste are the same in both countries. Countries have different shape of production possibility frontiers in favor of the product that has the technology. So for country A, the shape of the PPF will go longer toward Y. Hi, X, increasing X, yeah. Longer toward X. So country A has comparative advantage in X. Let me repeat. Country A has higher technology. This is still concept, okay, not going to the slide. This is the beef, the meat I add to this slide. Yeah, 2 years ago, 16 November 2021. I added that. Country A has better technology or higher technology in the production of X. Other things I call taste the same between two countries. Technology, endowment the same. So shape of the production possibilities frontier will go longer toward X. Will go longer toward X. So it means that this country has low opportunity cost for production of X. So this country will specialize in X. So that's comparative advantage based on technology. So conclusion, there are three cases where holding the other two the same in both countries, ceteris paribus, are determinants of comparative advantage. Factor endowment, this is the original Hexaolin theorem. Technology and taste. There are three factors will affect comparative advantage in the 2 by 2 by 2 model. One, factor endowment, and this is Hexaolin. The second one, taste. The third one, technology. In absence of comparative advantage, trade occurs based on economies of scale. Yes, this is the alternative. Economies of scale. This is chapter 4 until 8 that I mentioned earlier. Yes. As a basis for trade, internal economies of scale. There are two types: internal economies of scale and external economies of scale. Internal, inside the firm. What is economies of scale? The more production, the more you produce, the lower the average cost. You can achieve internal economies of scale internally within the company. By producing more, your cost, average cost, will reduce. What is average cost? Total cost divided by quantity. What is total cost? Fixed cost plus variable cost. Fixed cost, the machine, the land, everything fixed, plus variable is, vary. That depends on the number of output you want to produce. You produce more output, you need more labor, more, capital. Both will increase, but depends on which one will increase more. Depends on your intensity, the product intensity. If the product is capital intensive, capital use will increase by more. I'm not saying the other one will decrease. No. The other one will increase, but at slower rate. Because that's the concept. You want to produce more shirts, which is labor intensive. The rate of growth for the demand of labor increase more compared to increase in the use of capital, because shirt is labor intensive. You're making cars or semiconductor, which is capital intensive. more semiconductor you produce, more cars you produce, you will increase capital at a higher rate compared with you increase labor, because their product is capital intensive. I'm not saying decrease in labor, both will increase, but increase is more on the use of the capital. But that can happen. Reduce use of labor, yes, that can happen too. That's different story. We don't want to get into the complication. So, yes, internal economies of scale. The other one is external economies of scale. The reduction in your cost, in your average cost, is because of the industry, not because of your firm. But you get the benefit from being in that industry. For example, the cost, overall cost in the computer industry has reduced over the years. So you benefit from that. You can buy components, supplies at cheaper cost. So you benefit from external economies of scale. Second one, Linder hypothesis, overlapping demand has become the basis for trade. Rich countries tend to trade with rich countries because of similarities in income and thus therefore taste. Number 3, intra-industry trade. Within the same industry, in homogeneous products, location has become the basis, whereas IT in non-homogeneous products, differentiated products, become the basis for trade. This will go over in our lecture below. Technology as a source of comparative advantage. This is Vernon's product life cycle. So when I discuss here technology, this on the top, number 2. We discuss about Vernon product life cycle theory. And last, dynamic comparative advantage. As industrial policy, government identifies winners, encourages resources to move into that targeted industries, which the government consider as strategic to the country. So trade, this industrial policy becomes the basis for trade. Other than comparative advantage, other than factor endowment. So factor endowment is only hexaolin, the rest is non-hexaolin. Will achieve the same, which is comparative advantage. So that's the concept. Ricardian theory assumes relative labor productivity, labor cost, product differs in two countries. Product prices differ in two countries before trade, based on autarky. Autarky price, lower cost, and therefore lower opportunity cost. In a country, for example, X for country A, so country A will specialize in X. The opposite for country B in Y. Assumption of labor as a sole factor of production rules out explanation of how trade affects distribution of income among factors and why some favor trade while the other oppose it. So Swedish economists address two questions unexplained by Ricardo. Other than productivity or opportunity cost, what determine comparative advantage, and what effect does international trade have on earnings of various factors production? 1977. So immediate basis for trade is difference between pre-trade, before trade relative product prices of trading nations. So pre-trade, before trade prices depend on production possibilities, which depend on factor endowment, which lead to specialization, and trade based on competitive advantage is determined by factor endowment. So this capital labor ratio, we went over this last week. So this capital labor ratio. So what is important here? Capital labor ratio in our discussion. What's going to be the result? A country will export goods that will use the factor that are available a lot in that country. On the other hand, that country will import goods that will use factors which are not many available. I'm making a broken grammar so that I can emphasize not many, little. So now I say it in proper English. A country will import a good which will use, which will need to use, or make it present tense, which uses factors which are not available in the country, which are scarce, not available, or relatively available, relatively few in that country, which is so scarce, scarcely available in that country. The country will import that product. Here, for example, capital labor ratio in the States, 100 divided by 200, 0.5 capital labor ratio. In China, 0.2, 0.02. This is 0.5. United States has higher capital labor ratio than China. So United States will specialize in capital intensive goods. China will specialize in labor intensive goods. This is actually what is actually factor endowment. What is factor here? Capital and labor. United States has more capital, China has more labor. So specialization will be based on that, based on factor endowment actually. So the effect of resource endowments on competitive advantage, differences in relative resource endowments. This is what we must understand as the concept, which is, we take the last one, the pattern of competitive advantage. It means which country will produce and export what product, or the other hand, which country will import what products, import export. Okay, that's the pattern of comparative advantage. Pattern of international trade. If I make another here on my right, on the last one, pattern of international trade. Go to the left. Depends on the pattern of comparative advantage. Go to the left. Depends on here. Go to the very, very left. It is resource endowments. The very, very left is here. Not here. Not listed here. If I make another one on very left, is factor endowment. Factor endowment leads to differences in oh yeah, this is already. Sorry, I'm sorry. No need another one on the left. Already here. Differences in relative resource endowment. One country has more capital, another country has more labor. That difference will lead to differences in relative resource or factor price. Yes. A country that has more capital, interest rate will be low in that country. Interest rate is low because lots of capital there. A country that has lots of labor, wages are low in that country. When I say wages, we compare that to interest rate. When I say interest rate, we compare that to wages. That's ratio. So that leads to differences in relative product prices. This is very important. Relative product prices because of because of this factor endowment, and this will lead to pattern of comparative advantage. Again, maybe you're not getting what I said. The difference in relative product prices during autarky. During autarky, every time we look the situation during autarky, what we call pre-trade, not free trade, pre-PRE, like pre-university, preliminary, pre-qualifying for World Cup, pre-PRE. The difference in relative product prices because of the relative resource prices, and this finally shape the pattern of comparative advantage between two countries, and this will shape the pattern of international trade. Another one on the right, I should add, but no need, just understood. Trading based on comparative advantage. This capital stocks per worker. More developed countries, they tend to be higher on the K over L, capital labor ratio. Like United States, Japan, high. Compared with Vietnam, only 24. Philippines. Yeah, this is the I think we went through this last week. This autarky. This is with trading. This we put together the graph of China and the graph of US. Put together on the top of one another. So let's look at United States. This is production possibilities of United States. A is the autarkic point. Remember again, I'm repeating. During autarky, what you produce is what you consume. Or what you want to consume is what you produce. That's A. That's D. That's for United States. For China, the same point. Also A there. But what is more important here, the kissing point for United States production possibilities frontier, which is the slope during autarky here, which is the MRT, which is also opportunity cost for production of aircraft. We're talking about aircraft. When we discuss here, also we're talking about aircraft. We're not gonna mix. So 0.33. That's the MRT for aircraft production in the United States. It means that marginal rate of transformation, the more you increase production of one more aircraft, you must reduce 0.33 production of textile in the United States. In China, on the other hand, MRT 4.0, increase one more production of aircraft, I cannot, there's no space for me to show here, very small. Increase one more production of aircraft, will lead to decrease a lot by four times of reduction in textile. So very high opportunity cost for the production of aircraft in China. By how much? MRT 4.0. In United States, MRT only 0.33. So United States will specialize in aircraft. On the other hand, China will specialize in textile. By the shape already, without looking at the numbers, we can know already the shape of production possibilities frontier in the United States more tending toward longer toward aircraft. So United States will specialize in aircraft. Look at the shape of production possibilities frontier without doing anything, just right away. You see the picture? Yes, China will specialize in textile because that the shape here of production possibilities frontiers for China going more toward textile. So textile, China will specialize in textile. So that's during autarky. How do we look? Either the shape or given to us here, we calculate the MRT. Given the number, we can calculate MRT. What is MRT? The slope. What is the slope? How high you can jump going up divided by how long horizontal you can run. That's the slope. This is lower slope. Oh yes, lower opportunity cost in production of aircraft. This high slope, yeah, very high opportunity cost in production of aircraft. Don't mix. We're talking about aircraft. So now they trade. United States, we know from this, will specialize in aircraft. Will go to this point B. Produce there. China, on the other hand, will specialize in textile. Will move, increase the production of textile, decrease production of aircraft. That's concept of opportunity cost. You want the something, you have to reduce the other thing. So this point B. So we got point B prime and B. So we can draw the red line, my red line here, here, oop, meet here. Oh, the same line. Yeah, of course, the same red line. So C is the consumption for both countries. For China, for the US. So from there, we're gonna get the trade triangle. United States produce 15 aircraft, consume only 9. So 6 here is export of aircraft. United States also, US also, produce 1 only textile, but consume 7. So this import of 6. So import, export, and this is the trade triangle for the US. Now trade triangle for China. China produced 13 textile, but consume only 7. So 6 is export going to the US, this import here. China also produce only 3 textile. This is new after trading. Produce only 3 but consume 9. 6 is not enough imported from United States. This is export from US becomes import to China. So this is the trade triangle. So a country export the goods whose production is intensive in its relatively abundant factor. It imports, on the other hand, the goods whose production is intensive in its relatively scarce factor. Export, US export to China, mostly transport equipment, agriculture products, computers, yes. Imports from China, computers, electronic, electrical, this is 2016. Yeah. Quite recent. Electrical, so you see the difference. Machinery, not much. Transport equipment, export, electronics and computers from China, because China has more labor. Actually, computer and electronics has become the process of production, assembly is more labor intensive. You just assemble the production line goes like this, straight, just doing the same thing. This we went through already last week. Does China take away blue-collar American jobs? China has banned rules on trade, currency manipulation, stealing intellectual property, and that's why it can produce at cheaper cost, so can sell at cheaper price. Main source of growth is comparative advantage in labor-intensive goods. China's comparative advantage in labor-intensive goods may be diminishing because of rising wages in China. Wow, the meat that I added. Now, the topic that we left the last time, factor price equalization theorem, trade equalize product prices. Equalization of factor prices that lead to equalization of factor prices. So comparative advantage leads to production specialization and trade, change in relative output of product X and Y. Trade will change the relative price of goods at X and Y. And this will lead to change in factor price. So this is the theory of factor equalization. It says this: factor price becomes equalized all over the world because of trade. In other way, I say, because of free trade, factor prices all over the world will become the same, will equalize because of international trade. Somebody trying to get where can I accept? Somebody is trying to get in. Accept. Again, this is the concept that you must understand. When there is trade, free trade, product prices will equalize all over the world. When there is free trade, let me repeat, price of computers will be the same whether in Africa or in Tokyo, in anywhere in the world. Price of computers will be the same all over the world. Another example, price of shirts will be the same all over the world. But does not mean that price of computer will be the same as the price of shirt. No, we cannot compare orange with apple. But however, we can say price of computers will be the same all over the world. You don't need to go to China to buy a computer. Buy here in Malaysia, the same price. Understand now? That happens because of free trade. That's number one you must understand. Because of free trade, product prices will equalize all over the world because of free trade. That's number one. Because of this number one, number two will happen. The inputs that go into the products, the relative price of the inputs will become the same all over the world. See? Factor prices will become the same all over the world. So I will do this with my own drama to show you. Now let's go. Comparative advantage will lead to production specialization, will lead to trade. Okay, agree. Because of trade, I mentioned just now here. Because of trade, computers prices will be the same all over the world. This number 3. Change in relative output, product X and Y. Price of computers relative to price of shirt will be the same in China, in Burkina Faso, in Ghana, in Tanzania, in United States, in Malaysia, in Japan, in Korea, in Russia, in Finland, in Czechoslovakia, anywhere in the world will be the same. The relative price of computers compared to the price of shirts, for example. And this will lead to change in relative demand for factors. Because of what? Because of specialization. Because of trade. And this will lead to changes in factor prices of W relative to I interest rate. I put here R or I doesn't matter, interest rate. So with Heck-Shawlin factor proportion or factor endowment theorem, with Heck-Shawlin comparative advantage in abundant factor intensive products that will use the factor that are available a lot in that country, leads to production of more abundant factor intensive product, less of scarce factor intensive product, and they trade. This will lead to increase in demand for factor that are abundantly available in the country. If the country has capital, this will lead to use of more capital. If the based on actually, if the country has a lot of labor, this whole thing will lead to more use of labor. This will lead increase in the price of the abundant factor. So a country has lots of capital. Trading with Heck-Shawlin will lead to more use of capital, will lead to increase in the price of capital, which is rising in interest rate. Increase in price. On the other hand, will lead to decrease in price of the other factor, the scarce factor in that country. And this lead to change in the distribution of income in favor of abundant factor owners. If a country has loss of capital, who will be happy? Capitalists will be happy. The owners of capital, capitalists will be happy. If the country has loss of labor, who will be happy? Laborers will be happy. And that's against scarce factor owners. So before trade, price of X is cheaper in a country, in country A compared with country B. This is before trade, pre-trade. Cheaper price of X, cheaper in country A. With trade, price of X increase in country A while decreases in country B. That's good, because X is what country A export, and this is good, decrease in country B, because X is what B imports. That's the beauty of trade. Your export product will increase in price, your imported products will decrease in price. That's good. That's the beauty of international trade. They converge to become dual world price. So Px per Py, A no more like this, smaller. This country A specialized in X, country B specialize in Y. Because price of X, we maintain X on the top. Okay? Price of X is relative to price of Y, very expensive in country A. So, country B. So don't specialize in X. Expensive before trade because of high opportunity cost. This is price of X is cheaper than price of Y in country A because of lower opportunity cost to produce X in country A. So specialize in X. So with specialization and trade, price of X in country B relative to price of Y will equalize to price of X relative to price of Y in country B will become equalized as price of the world price of X relative to price of Y. This is world price. Equalize. That's what I was saying. Because of trade, price of computer relative to shirt in Ghana will be as the same as price of computers relative to shirt in United States. Will be the same price, relative price of computers compared to shirt in New Zealand. Doesn't matter which country, will be the same. All over the world, in fact, in the world, will be the same price. That's product price equalization. So the theory that we're discussing here, because of product price equalization, factor price also become equalized. Yes. So trade redirects demand away from relatively expensive, scarce resources toward relatively cheap, abundantly available in the country the resources, whether capital or labor, in each nation. So abundant or cheap resource becomes relatively more expensive. K, abundant, which interest rate is low, now interest rate become higher. Scarce, expensive resource becomes relatively cheaper. Eventually, factor price equalization occurs as globalization evens things out. So this is the concept. Factor price equalization theorem is because of trade based on comparative advantage as taught to us by Smith and Ricardo and extended by Hexolin led to product price equalization. This lead to factor price equalization. Interest rate over W will be the same all over the world. Factor price equalization occurs both in absolute term and relative term. Absolute term like this. R in country A will be equal to R country B. The wages also, add one more, RA equal RB, country B, RW, R in the world. Wages also, wages in America equals wages in Japan, equals wages in Burkina Faso, equals wages in South Africa. In fact, wages in the world, W also the same. That's absolute term. What about relative? Same. W over R in A equals W over R in B equals W over R W in the world. So my drama comes. There's a daughter, but wait that drama after we stop our lesson. Okay, wait to this. In real world, no full factor price equalization exists because trade is not completely free of barriers, because there's tariff, everything, and quota, and transportation costs exist. Labor is not identical. Technology varies across countries. So in reality, we don't achieve that factor price equalization. This is trade changes the mix of factors used in production. You know from the picture already, US will specialize in aircraft. China specializes in textile. The shape of this tells us. So, trade promotes factor price moving into equality across country. With trading, one thing happens. Product prices will equalize. Now, the theory we're talking about is not product prices, factor price. So, what happened? Before trade, capital price this is pre-trade, this is with trade. Equalization. Capital in China, very, very expensive. China has more labor. United States has more capital. China has more labor means less capital. China has less capital, very few capital, so price of capitals was very high. United States, on the other hand, has lots of capital. Price of capital was low here. With trading, they equalized to this point. Equalization of the price of capital. Decrease. Interest rate decrease in China. Interest rate will increase in United States. In fact, become equalized in the world at this level, whatever level there. Why that happens? Take United States, for example. Oh, you, United States, you have capital. Oh, you must specialize in capital intensive goods, aircraft. So more aircraft will be produced, more aircraft will use more capital. As a result, more demand for capital. Interest rate will go up, or I or R, whatever. The notation that I use, R also okay, I also okay, both I refer to interest rate. More production of capital intensive goods, which is aircraft, more demand for capital. More demand for capital, interest rate will go up. Yes, go up. In China, China, you have more labor. This I'm Shaolin, okay? I'm Shaolin. You China, you have more labor. You must specialize in labor intensive goods. Produce more textile. Don't do other things. More textile. So China produces more textile. Will demand, will use more labor. As a result, use more labor. Wages, which was here, this side. Labor. I'm talking about here already. You use more labor. So, China, loss of labor, wages was low, more textile produced, means more demand for labor, wages will go up. On the other hand, for United States. So, on the other hand here, if we maintain the story of capital only, I started to jump labor just now. If you maintain the story about capital, you China, you have more labor. it means that you don't have capital a lot. You don't have a lot of capital. So China does not have lots of capital. Interest rate was high. So you don't try to produce aircraft. You have labor. You produce labor intensive product, which is textile. So when you produce more textile, more labor will be used instead of capital. More labor used, capital less labor, or increase more labor, more capital but at a lower rate. So you see, when I mentioned earlier, it could happen that less on the other one will occur, the demand. But usually, when we produce a product, we assume no labor reducing technology available. We assume that. Okay, more of capital intensive product produced, you will increase both more capital used, more labor used, but which one is more that you will be using? Capital. Increase at a higher rate, the use, compared with labor, because this product is capital intensive. Now assume this product is labor intensive, textile. Labor intensive. When you increase production, more shirt, and more shirt, both factors will be needed. Labor and capital will increase the use. But which one will increase by more? Labor will increase by more, the use of labor, compared with increase in use of capital. Okay. So in this case, China specializes in textile, which is labor intensive. Increase textile, increase the use of labor and capital, or capital and labor. But which one will increase by more? Labor use will increase by more. Labor, because textile is labor intensive. As a result, which one increase by more? Labor. Capital also increase, but not much increase in capital. As a result, capital, which was expensive in China, now becomes cheaper. Okay, becomes cheaper because less and less. In this case, according to the picture here, there is a capital saving technology available. So, according to the picture here, it assumes that specialization will lead to increased use of labor but decreased use of capital. So when capital use decreases, no demand for capital, less demand for capital, so capital interest rate will go down. That's what happened to China. When there is less demand for capital, interest rate will go down and meet here. So this is factor price equalization on labor. Now, China specializes in textile, which is, we assume, labor intensive. Increased use of labor, so wages was low because many laborers available in China will use more labor. Demand for more labor will increase the wages. In United States, on the other hand, the production tends toward more automobile, which is capital intensive. More capital will be used relative to labor. That's why wages will go down. The demand for labor is lower. You can explain this into relative. I will be safe to tell you a story in terms of relative rather than just now a decrease of the other one. So relatively here, United States, which specializes in aircraft, which is capital intensive, the demand for capital relative to the demand for, yes, that's better, relative to the demand for labor will increase in the demand for capital relative to labor. As a result, on the other way, we can say the demand in the States for labor relative to capital decreases. The demand for labor decreases because the product aircraft is capital intensive. So the demand for labor decreases relative to capital. As a result, demand for labor decreases, wages go down. In other words, equalization. So this is factor price equalization. By forcing product prices into equality, international trade also tends to force factors prices into equality across country. Where is this? Product prices. Trading. This is trading based on specialization. According to what? Hexaolin. By doing what? Specialize in the product that will use the factor, will demand the factor that are available a lot in your country. That will increase the price of that factor. So become equalized. Okay, this is because of this. Okay. Who gain or lose from trade? The Stopper-Samuelson theorem. So extended by Stopper-Samuelson says that increase in price of product through trading product on the left, product, increase the price of product through trading because of specialization. Same thing. I'm repeating the same thing 3 times. Increase in the price of products because of international trade will increase income earned by resources used intensively in its production, which is based on Hexaolin. So Stopper-Samuelson extended the Hexaolin theorem. Decrease in price of product reduces income of resources used intensively in its production. Increase, decrease. So the opposite story. Okay, easy to understand this. Price increase, price decrease on the other one, which is the price of imports. This is price of export. Implies that export of product that embodies large amounts of relatively available, cheap, abundantly available resources makes resources scarcer, thus lead to driving up its price and income. Also, imports of product that embodies large amounts of relatively expensive, not available in the country, the resources, the factors make resources less scarce and drive less cars and driving prices, the prices of the factors down. Not only that, this happened with magnification effect. So I wanna give my drama to you. Stopper-Samuelson. Remember again, Stopper-Samuelson is extension of hexaolin. There's a mother and son. To explain this, who gain and lose from trade? To explain also this magnification effect, that the change in the factor prices is higher than the change in the product prices. Changes in factor prices, changes in the prices of factors is greater than the change in the prices of products. You must pay attention to the word products and factors. Our topic is factors. The change in the this just now equalized. Why equalized? Because the change, this change, factor price, up, down, up for United States, down for China, with regard to capital, with regard to labor, increase in China, which used to be lower, the wages increase because of trade. Let me repeat, I think this will get you. China has a lot of labor. As a result, salary, wages are low. Because of international trade, salary will go up, wages will go up. On the other hand, for United States, these changes here, we are talking about changes in the factor price. Factor prices changes. So now, what is magnification effect? As explained by Stopper-Samuelson, not only the flow product prices to the factor prices. Not only that, that's half the story. Second part is that happened, the change in the factor prices, factor price, this change, factor prices, W over R or I over R, same. No. Oh yeah. IR the same, interest rate or R. This W over R will be the same all over the world. That changes because of these changes. This change, which is factor price change, the change in factor price is greater than the change in product price. The change in product price happened because of trade. Increase of aircraft in America and the world. Increase in aircraft in the world. That's good because aircraft is what United States export. And for China, that translates into decrease in price of aircraft because the world price now cheaper than Chinese price of aircraft before trade. That's good because Aircraft is what China imports. Textile. Now, textile in China was so cheap before trade. Now after trade, the world price increases. That's good, because textile is what China exports. Textile was so expensive in the US before trade. So expensive. Now, world price of textile has decreased. That's good, because United States imports textile. You see, that product prices change. So, magnification effects says that product prices change compared with factor prices change. Factor prices increase or change, increase or decrease, change even more. The factor prices changes more than factor prices. Each factor price changes in the same direction, but more than proportionally with price of product that use that factor intensively. Example, if the price of labor-intensive products rises by 10%, product, I make it a bold capital letter. Price of product increased by 10%. Price of factor used intensively in that product, which is L, labor intensive. Price of L will increase, which is W, labor, wages. Wages will rise by more than 10%. This is magnification effect. If assume the price of capital intensive product remains unchanged, when the price of labor intensive product rises by 10%, therefore the price of K, which is R, must fall. If we assume the other one no change, ceteris paribus must fall. So magnification effect, which is changes in factor of price, prices of factors will changes in factor prices are bigger than changes in product prices. This magnification effect. Which one? This one, factor prices change by more. Not only equalize, but they change by more to become equalized. They change by a lot to become equalized all over the world. Now, now my drama. Factor price equalization. San, you don't need now this code diang. Example, wait, I am googling example of rural China, rural area in China, to give you context. Oh, this is all Malaysian. Sorry, not China class, mixed up. This morning China class. Okay, let's take Kod Diang Kedah. I like to use the word Kod Diang because when I hear the word Kod Diang, to me it sounds very rural, kampung. In Korea, we always talk about Cholado. Cholado become more, symbolizes more of rural area. Cholla. Kod Diang good example because of the name only. I never been to Koh Diang. I'm sorry for those people who come from Koh Diang. I don't mean to, ashame your town just because the name only. Koh Diang, very rural area. So, son, you don't need to go to Kuala Lumpur. In fact, you don't need to go to Tokyo to work. Because, son, I learned from Stopper Samuelson, wages in Koh Diang, wages in Tokyo, wages in New York will be the same all over the world. In fact, son, you just stay with me here at our house. Don't need to go to New York just to get better salary. No need to go to Singapore. No need to go to anywhere in the world. Just stay here and work here in Koh Diang. Why? I learned, son, from Stopper Samuelson theorem. Prices of factor would equalize no matter where you are. You will get the same salary. Based on absolute term or relative term, relative to interest rate, will be the same all over the world. Another daughter. How do I call this? Son? Daughter? Ame. We call Ame. Daughter. Ame. You don't need to invest your money at Tokyo Stock Exchange. You don't need to send your money to New York Stock Exchange. You just invest here in Syukri Security, Koh Diang, Sendian Berhad. Because I've learned from the Madrasah. I've learned from Stopper Samuelson that interest rate will equalize all over the world, whether in Koh Diang, in Kuala Lumpur, in Singapore, in Tokyo, in Beijing, in London. Interest rate will equalize not only in absolute term but also in relative term. Your interest rate relative to wages. No need to go to bring your money to New York. You don't need to go to KL. You don't need. Turn off your computer. Why? All this. You want to transfer money to Citibank? You want to transfer money to Lehman Brothers Bank to invest in New York City, New York Stock Exchange? No need. I've learned from Stopper Samuelson. See? Very, very nice theory to discuss. Stopper Samuelson. Not only that, I learned from Stopper Samuelson. You know, your interest rate, your income, dividend income will increase a lot. Because I've learned from Stopper Samuelson the magnification effect of free trade. All you gotta do, just go out there, campaign for free trade in the world. You like to write, you like to write, so you write to newspapers, you write to magazine, proposing, telling the virtues, the beauty of international trade, free trade, because I've learned from Smith and Ricardo and Hector Olin that free trade is good. The mother. So the mother must have had a PhD in international economics. That's my drama only. So next, finish. Is international trade a substitute to migration? Immigrants continue to immigrants contribute to the United States economy, increase the size of labor force, fill low-skilled jobs that few native-born Americans are willing to do, brings jobs that contribute to the U.S. as a leader in tech innovation. Critics say they take jobs away from America. These imports through international trade take away our job. Who say this? Trade unions. Those workers' union in the factory. They will suppress domestic wages, keep wages low in the country, and consume sizable amounts of public service. These people, all these, not the people, because of cheap goods, they're coming from imports. Lots of public services actually indirectly helping those exporters in other country. We consuming imports. We pay electricity, we pay taxes, we pay all the other public services. But actually, to produce our goods, to export, but we import cheaper goods. So actually, indirectly, other country people from other country are benefiting from our public services. All the education that we have, the healthcare that we have, indirectly, people from overseas benefit by being able to export, and from us being able to import their products, because we can have good health. We don't spend money on other, we have more money for imports. Our disposable income is bigger, is higher, because of our public service are good. So our disposable income higher, we can import more. And indirectly, those producers and exporters and in other countries indirectly benefit from our good public service. Can trade reduce immigration? International movements in resources are not essential. In factors are not essential. According to trade theory, international trade in products can achieve the same result. Why? Production, just now, factor price equalization theory. Because of trade, laborers in Indonesia will be happy, because Indonesia specializes in labor-intensive products. No need to come to Malaysia. That's the theory. Just like just now, Sun, you don't need to go to Sun. The Sun is in Indonesia. Sun, you don't need to go to Malaysia to get better wages, because I've learned from Stoffel Samuelson. Price of wages will equalize between Malaysia. A price of wages, price of labor, which is wages, will be equalized between Malaysia and Indonesia. Just sleep here, stay here with me. You can have my dinner with me that I cook. So movement in resources are not essential, not necessary, because trade can achieve that, the same result. Complement labor migration, short and near long terms. So trade will complement labor migration. No need to migrate. Expanding trade results in some unemployed workers forced to seek employment abroad.
Kenapa? Boleh aku dah. Kau dah buka bodoh.
Because of trade, this will result in unemployed workers forced to seek employment abroad. Complement labor migration, short and near term, but it's not necessary, not essential. So this is the trade theory, but reality is different. Factor price equalization does not happen and never happens because of trade is not really free. However, that direction, yes, not exactly equal, but that direction tending toward equalization of factor price, yes. Next is a specific factor. Now, what happens if one of the factors are specific to that particular industry only? For example, capital for the production of car or computers cannot be in the short term used for producing wheat or rice, because that capital is only for cars and computers or computers only. So, factor endowment model of, and it's Stopper Samuelson, assume K and L more effortlessly can be used among industries within the country, but not across country, just like Smith Ricardo. However, in reality, in the short run, factors can be specifically suitable for one industry only, which is now our study of factor-specific theory. Factors that cannot move easily from one industry to another. Workers acquire skills for specific occupations not easily transferable to other industries. Capital are more immobile across industries. Capital for aircraft, yes, good example, cannot be used for producing wheat. We assume K is specific, K for computer, K for steel, while L is mobile across industries, computer and steel. One is specific, K. Analyzes the income distribution effects on trade in the short term when resources are immobile among industries. The result: resources specific to import competing industry will lose as a result of trade. What is import competing? Products which a country has been importing, that country now wants to produce it domestically, locally. That's import competing industry will lose as a result of free trade. Which resources specific to that import competing industry will lose? Resources specific to export industries gain as a result of trade, because according to Hexaolin, specialization is based on comparative advantage. So those not according to comparative advantage will lose. And what more, that product is specific to that industry of import competing will lose. Resources specific to import competing industry will lose. K. If K is specific to the production of we take China and United States. We know United States has comparative advantage in aircraft, China in textile. Now, China wants to produce textile, which is import competing industry. If K is specific to the production of aircraft, the other one is mobile, labor is mobile. The increase in the use of K because of aircraft production, which is against the principle of comparative advantage, which China should be producing more textile, and this will lead to higher price of aircraft relative to textile, and leads to higher price of aircraft will lead to negatively going even more for the capital that specific to the aircraft, which capital the rate of decrease or the price of interest rate will go down. So that, how do I say this? When no, the other way around. Sorry, I'll explain this better this way. Because of international trade, if one factor is specific to the production of, in this case, aircraft, we know China should specialize in textile. The trading itself will create the situation that the company that has capital as a specific factor, which is the aircraft company, will lose. The capital owner will lose. On the other hand, in the case of United States, capital which is specific to aircraft, whereas labor is not specific to any. The labor can move around, but this capital intensive will gain. Our interest rate will go up, so will be positively beneficial for the country in the short run only. So again, you must remember this discussion of specific factor is only in the short run. Because why? The concept of factor, when it is specific, it cannot be readily be used for both products. So if it's aircraft, yes, positive for United States. If it's aircraft for China, specific will be negative, because cannot be readily used, cannot be trained, or cannot be used, not trained. Factors which is specific to certain industry, it cannot be changed immediately to be used for the other industry. That's the concept. As a result, we see this. Resource specific to import competing industry will lose. Resources specific to export industry, in the case of United States, aircraft export industry will gain as a result. And this will be in the short run only. In the long run, we will go back to this price equalization theorem. In the long run, we will go back to this. I should have another table there, or a picture like this.